It is a day that once more brings into the light a long-disputed religious icon, the Shroud of Turin, which many believe is the real burial cloth of Jesus. The cloth of linen dates from Jesus' time, and now artificial intelligence has become part of the controversy surrounding it. In the depths of supercomputer, code streams by as an artificial intelligence digests millions of points of data from the shroud. It's not looking for a face or for stains, but for pattern within the randomness of old fibers. The machine freezes. It has detected a signal, a recurring mathematical pattern buried beneath the visible picture. This pattern is something no medieval artist could have created, and no known natural process can explain. Scientists are now trying to understand what this astonishing discovery means for one of history's most controversial artifacts. For believers, the Shroud of Turin, a 14-foot-long linen, is a sacred relic. For skeptics, it's an ingenious medieval forgery. It is ironic that man has walked on the moon, mapped the human genome, and split the atom, but still cannot agree on a single piece of cloth. The argument was settled in 1988, when 3 independent laboratories utilized radiocarbon dating and determined that the cloth dated back between 1260 and 1390, solidly placing it in the Middle Ages. The enigma had been solved, but not yet. The shroud has never ceased to have enigmatic details that don't make sense. It was in 1898 when Italian attorney Secondo Pia first photographed the shroud and stumbled upon a startling revelation. In his darkroom, the negative photograph showed a very clear positive image of a man's face. The fact that the image on the fabric was actually a photographic negative some 3 centuries prior to the invention of photography. That alone was remarkable. The picture is also incredibly shallow, sitting atop the very surface microfibers of the linen threads, only a few hundred nanometers deep, much thinner than a single human hair, which is roughly 80,000 nanometers thick. The color doesn't soak into the fabric like paint or dye, and no brushstrokes or sense of directionality. The fibers seem to have been chemically modified to create the color. Scientists attempted to replicate the effect with hot statues, acid painting, and dust transfers, but none were able to reproduce all the special characteristics of the image on the shroud. More intriguing, the image has precise 3-dimensional information. In the 1970s, researchers at the U.S. Air Force Academy applied a NASA-designed VP-8 image analyzer, a machine designed to map planetary surfaces, to a photograph of the shroud. They discovered that, in contrast to ordinary photographs, image brightness corresponded directly with the distance of cloth from a 3-dimensional figure. Darker spots, like the nose, were nearer, lighter spots were farther. The analyzer created an exact 3-dimensional relief map from a 2-dimensional photograph, something no painting or photograph had ever done. Scientists were puzzled. How could a supposed artifact of the Middle Ages have what seems to be cutting-edge imaging properties? Artificial intelligence has now blown the enigma wide open. Researchers entered ultra-high-resolution digital scans of the shroud into high-powered neural networks programmed to look for buried patterns. The AI was not taught religious or historical suppositions. It merely looked for mathematical order. What it discovered amazed scientists: an unseen layer of digital-like information composed of faint geometric symmetries and repeating mathematical proportions throughout the image. The information exhibited an organized order having nothing to do with the figure itself, similar to an invisible blueprint embedded in the texture. This isn't an image. It's a highly organized dataset. The AI verified the 3-dimensional details with much more accuracy, presenting a mathematical coherence that would be almost impossible for any faker to replicate. It also detected recurring geometric patterns in the face, hands, and torso, proof of a process way beyond the capabilities of any medieval technique known so far. Confronted with these results, researchers now consider the nearly mind-bending possibility that the world's best-known relic could possibly be an extremely sophisticated bit of information technology produced by some unidentified process. To appreciate the scale of this assertion, we have to look back at the 1988 carbon dating test. It was then that a small portion from one corner of the shroud was excised and distributed between 3 leading labs in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona. All 3 labs, using accelerator mass spectrometry, a technique that counts carbon-14 atoms individually, determined that the cloth was medieval. The world's media hailed the enigma solved, calling the shroud a forgery. Questions soon crept in. They noted that the sample for testing was taken from one of the most repaired and touched portions of the cloth, a portion near the corner frequently used to show in public. The shroud had withstood numerous fires, including one in 1532, when after being damaged in flames, nuns re-sewed and reattached the linen on a new backing material. The carbon dating sample was taken from this exact location. Chemist Raymond Rogers, part of the first 1978 Shroud of Turin research project, received residual threads from the sample and made a shocking find. The fibers chemically differed from those of the shroud's remaining fabric. They had plant gum coating, were woven with cotton, and even carried traces of dye, indicators that the sample was taken from a medieval patchwork, not the original linen. It was like measuring the age of an old building with a sample of new mortar. This would obviously give a younger date. Rogers' discovery brought the carbon dating results into doubt. Follow-up experiments with vibrational spectroscopy and X-ray examination confirmed his result, with the possibility that the shroud may be a great deal older, some 2,000 years, for example. One placed it at 900 BC, plus or minus 200 years, by guesswork, while another indicated the 1st century. The enigma, far from being resolved, had only intensified, and with AI now revealing further depths of complexity, the Shroud of Turin still defies all we believe we understand about history, science, and religion. None of them are as universally accepted as carbon-14 dating, and hence the controversy rages on to this day. The scientific community is split down the middle, and this is exactly the reason why the AI discovery is such a big deal. The AI didn't need a physical sample. On that note, it skipped the debate over the repaired corner altogether. Rather, it examined the picture itself. The one part everyone can agree is the key to the mystery. The patterns it found weren't based on the cloth's age, but were inherent in how the picture was created. Even assuming one believes the cloth to be medieval in date, more mysterious still is how a medieval forger, unaware of photography, computer imaging, or nanotechnology, could create an artifact that includes layers of geometric and three-dimensional information only accessible through contemporary artificial intelligence. The accuracy of the picture is so remarkable that some researchers define it as a type of spatial intelligence imprinted on the fibers. The paradox is remarkable. The AI did not solve the age controversy. It made it obsolete. What the AI uncovered was not a secret message nor signature, but something considerably more basic. Employing a method known as principal component analysis, the neural networks remove noise and extraneous data to distill the most important patterns within a huge data set. Applied to high-resolution scans, the image of the man receded into background, and instead, the field of mathematical information was laid bare. The light and dark areas of the picture represented three-dimensional forms with mathematical accuracy, adhering to a predictable and constant rule nearly like a physical law. Imagine a sheet draped over a body for which an unknown force is emanating. The tighter the sheet is to the flesh, the greater the effect. The farther away it is, the lesser. The AI verified that this correlation is true throughout the entirety of the shroud with surprising precision. A difference from an artist's suggestion of depth, this photo had real depth information, built right into its form. To counterfeit such a thing would need not only artistry, but a fictional command of physics and mathematics on a microscopic scale. Even more surprisingly, the AI revealed recurring geometric structures and ratios akin to musical harmonies. Just as some notes ring harmonious together due to mathematical harmony between them, the AI discovered geometric relationships between facial features, hands, and proportions of the body, all spun into an underlying geometric structure. These patterns, not visible to human eye and buried beneath centuries of wear, were unmistakable to the AI. To check its results, researchers matched the information against photographs of other old linens and works of art, but none had a similar geometric pattern. This implied that the structure of the shroud was completely one of a kind. The implications were mind-boggling. The image seemed to have been created not by contact, but by some sort of energy that cast information onto the fabric from afar. Explanations shortly emerged. A corona discharge, a high-voltage electrical field that could stamp an image, was one. A flash of ultraviolet radiation was another. But no experiment could replicate all the shroud's qualities, especially its flawless three-dimensional data and buried geometry. The image is just nanometers thick and contains a tremendous amount of structured information. As one physicist said, this doesn't behave like an artifact. It acts like a phenomenon. If it is indeed a phenomenon, what type would it be? The AI discovery of mathematical structure implies possibilities that are all astounding. Maybe a hidden technology, an unrecognized natural law, or even an instant when physical reality itself changed. When the AI reversed the encoded proportions in one simulation, it created an exact spatial harmonic chart, the kind that is employed in quantum imaging. A few physicists started muttering the unspeakable, that the shroud could have imprinted a phenomenon outside of regular physics, a flash of energy so short and powerful it registered an informational shadow instead of a scorch. Additional examination revealed what the AI called phase coherence lines, minute symmetrical configurations separated like barcode lines. Translated into wave frequencies, they yielded harmonic tones exactly like ratios applied in ancient hallowed music and design. The researchers half-joked that the cloth seemed to hum in silence. But what if it wasn't a joke? What if those harmonies represented an encoded order emerging from chaos? When the findings leaked, the Vatican declined to comment, and the custodians of the Shroud in Turin remained silent. Nonetheless, independent laboratories requested access to the AI's data. There were reports by some of the geneticists that they identified fragments of mitochondrial DNA in the blood spots that did not belong to any known local population, and chromosomal markers, anomalies made one team characterize the genetic profile as human, but not quite. In private, whispers increased. Conferences turned into battlegrounds as theologians interpreted evidence of faith, while skeptics attacked the AI for fitting noise. But no one could invalidate the geometric coherence. The information was irrefutable. Even trials at replicating the image through random generation were unsuccessful. After 10 million iterations, no simulation yielded anything even remotely approaching the Shroud's sophistication. Statistically, the chances of such ordered information occurring through chance were less than a 1 in 10 trillion. Then something strange occurred. The initial AI, which continued to operate in passive mode, started comparing the Shroud's encoded geometry with language databases. One late night, it produced a shocking output. Patterns in the facial area were similar to ancient Aramaic letters. When applied to the chest area, it produced half words, creating coherent pieces. The translation promised words like, "I am beyond life, not flesh." The researchers delayed publication for fear of recriminations, but the data leaked. Linguists verified analogies to Koine Greek and 1st century Aramaic, suggesting that the image could not only be physical, but informational, a multidimensional record inscribed in geometry and language. One scientist termed it a quantum hologram of consciousness itself. In the face of increasing public pressure, the Vatican released a terse statement. The Church awaits further verification. Meanwhile, worldwide interest erupted. Documentaries, debates, and speculations dominated the media. Some hailed the AI's findings as evidence of divine reality. Others warned that humanity was venturing into realms it wasn't meant to explore. The phrase code of the Christ trended for weeks. In Geneva, physicists simulated the energy flash needed to produce the Shroud's depth, determining it would require an ultraviolet pulse of under 140 billionths of a second in energy that amounts to all the electricity produced in Europe. Yet the linen was not singed, merely flawlessly imprinted. As the AI built a three-dimensional representation from the data encoding, the calm and lifelike face that appeared had open eyes, not in agony but serene, a haunting figure that rendered even the most hardened skeptic speechless.